Todd, you got me?
I see you there, Jonathan. Yeah.
Todd, thanks for everything.
No problem.
Hey, Todd, it looks like we're missing one board member.
I don't see Dr. Halkiotis yet.
Right.
I can have Joe reach out to him.
Yes, please do. We'll go ahead and get started. Right, I'll call this meeting to order. The Orange County Board of Education pledges to its citizens to conduct its business in a courteous and productive manner, showing respect to fellow board members, staff, and citizens. The board asks its citizens to conduct themselves in the same courtesy towards both school personnel and each other. As per board policy, Robert's Rules of Orders will be used to conduct meetings. A moment of silence will be observed before each meeting. In addition to the moment of silence at each meeting held at the school site, the board will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. The board asks that you check your cell phones and other electronic devices to be certain they are either turned off or on vibrate to avoid interruptions during the meeting. Well, a lot of that doesn't make sense right now. All right. At this time, we'll take a moment of silence. All right. Next, we have our agenda adoption. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda with the amended report for consent?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, with that, we have two people signed up for comments. The first person, just give me a moment, I have to switch this up. Our first person to speak is Chris Morris, and he wants to discuss agenda item H2, remote learning for students. Todd, can we unmute Chris?
Mr. Morris is unmuted now.
Mr. Morris, you have 3 minutes. Please state your comments for the board.
Hello, thank you guys for doing all this remotely. It makes it a lot easier for everyone to at least participate. I also wanted to thank everybody that has worked so hard on all of this, for instruction, from the teachers to volunteers, administration, the board, especially when getting kids, fed and supplies, providing parents with direction, and keeping our kids on track. So we appreciate everything that's been done. One of my first questions is, I have a couple, but is there any plan in place to have any new instruction for kids? The information that was passed out this Sunday primarily states review of already learned materials. And how will this stall in the new instruction be supplemented in coming years, the coming year? If there is not any new instruction being taught from this point until hopefully as early as May 15th, but possibly longer, is there going to be any, how is the cumulative assessment going to be possible? And I understand that there's not a lot of people that have, not everyone has access to computers or tablets, internet. And is there any kind of plan in place for those folks to have access to internet specifically? I know my understanding is that the Orange County provides laptops to those who may not have access to them. So with that, what are the roadblocks for new instruction being delivered to students? Is there any plan for synchronous or asynchronous instruction being utilized by teachers? Things like video conference or Hangouts. And if the roadblock is individuals not having access to internet or tablets, my understanding, like I said, they could obtain a laptop from OCS. If the roadblock is internet access, is there not some type of supplement or supplemental that Orange County can provide to individuals that could not afford it, working with some type of provider in the area, such as Spectrum? My understanding is that something to that effect has been done in Mecklenburg County. I understand, a lot of people want hard copies versus going online for things, but is there not any plan for interactive resources that the students here are going to be able to interact with their teachers? From my understanding, there is no plan for that, at least what that was communicated up to this point. Thank you. That's all I have.
Will, it looks like you're talking, but you're muted.
Can anybody hear Will?
No, I cannot. I was just going to ask if it was me.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So our next person to speak is Kimberly McBroom, and there's no topic listed. So Todd, if you could unmute Ms. McBroom to let her speak.
I just sent you a list of the 2 people that had registered. I don't think Ms. McBroom had listed an item that she wanted to speak on. I can unmute her and we can check if you'd like.
Okay, you say well, the list you gave me was there were 2, and those are the 2 names I have.
Right. Only one wanted to make a public comment.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Okay. All right. With that, we will move forward. That's all the public comment then. Next agenda item is the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
With the updated personnel report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, the first action item we have on the agenda is the resolution for National Autism Awareness Month. Do we have a board member to volunteer to read that?
I will, because I told you I always would, but I would always be happy to read resolutions.
Thank you.
I read the last one, so I was going to wait for somebody else to volunteer. Okay. Orange County Board of Education resolution to recognize National Autism Awareness Month. Whereas the Orange County school system is a center for diverse learning where all students are educated to their fullest potential and is a center of our community around which we come together in support of the education of all students. And whereas autism is a developmental disorder typically diagnosed during the first 3 years of life, greatly impacting individuals of their ability to communicate and interact with others. And whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's National Health Statistics report concluded the prevalence of autism spectrum disorder has risen to 1 in every 54 children in the United States. And whereas it's reported to occur in all racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic groups, but is more than 4 times more common among boys than girls. And whereas early diagnosis and intervention programs lead to significantly improved outcomes for individuals with autism. And whereas the Orange County School District employs qualified and caring individuals who educate and work daily to improve the lives of students with autism. And whereas April 2020 is designated as National Autism Awareness Month to increase public awareness of the need to support individuals with autism and the family members, educators, and other professionals who teach and care for individuals with autism. Therefore, be it resolved that the Orange County Board of Education hereby, 1, that it celebrates National Autism Awareness Month from April 1st to 30th, 2020. 2, that it recognizes and commends the family members of children with autism for their sacrifices and dedication in providing for the special needs of children with autism. 3, that it emphasizes the need to begin early intervention services soon after a child is diagnosed with autism in an effort to improve potential outcomes for people with autism. 4, that it acknowledges the teachers, paraprofessionals, and other educators who possess the desire, caring, and skills necessary to teach, assist, and respond to special needs students, including those with autism, and who work tirelessly to educate and provide high-quality programming for special needs students enrolled in the Orange County School District. To the 6th day of April, 2020.
Thank you, Sarah. Do we have a second? Or a motion, I should say?
Ms. Stevens did, but you're muted.
Will,
Yes.
can we, in the part where it says therefore be it resolved, it would be more grammatically correct if we took the that it is out of the numerated items. Does everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
Can we take those out?
Yeah, we can, yeah.
Okay, that would be my preference. Then I would motion to approve it. And I also support it so much, and I'm so grateful to have a diverse learning community in Orange County schools, and celebrate the teachers who work with these students every day and the students and families in our district.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, just if we can have the minutes reflect that it was approved with that change. Agenda item. And at our next, let's see, our next agenda item is the resolution for our agricultural programs. Unfortunately, we were not going to be able to have the 75th Junior Livestock Show this year, but we still want to recognize them. Do we have a volunteer to read that one?
I can read it.
Okay, thanks, Hillary.
Let me pull it up real quick.
No.
Okay, can y'all still hear me?
Yep.
Okay. The Orange County Board of Education resolution to honor and recognize the agricultural programs. Whereas the Orange County school system's agricultural programs have consistently been successful educational programs for diverse learning, where all students are educated to their fullest potential, and which have received strong community support in the dissemination of agricultural knowledge and life skills. And whereas, because of a rapidly increasing worldwide population and a subsequent demand to feed more than 9 billion people by the year 2050, the agriculture industry needs talented and passionate youth willing to make a professional commitment to this field. And whereas agricultural programs support the local economy and local farmers and teach students about raising and maintaining livestock and the origins of our food and how food is grown. And whereas the Orange County school system's agricultural programs are nationally recognized and routinely compete and excel at local, regional, state, and national competitions. And whereas the Orange County school system recognizes that agriculture is the key element for a globally sustainable food supply. And whereas the Orange County school system's agricultural programs have demonstrated excellence in classroom and laboratory instruction, experiential learning and education, and leadership development for over 70 years in the Orange County schools. Therefore, be it resolved to demonstrate its appreciation, the Orange County Board of Education hereby celebrates the Orange County school system's agricultural programs, commends the agricultural students, their family members, the FFA programs, and the FFA alumni for their dedication, support, and commitment to the Orange County Schools agricultural programs. It recognizes that agricultural programs build character, develop leadership, instill life skills, and contribute to the overall betterment of our community.
Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you. The next item is the 2020-2021 local budget expense budget approval. So Dr. Feldman or Rhonda, I'm not sure who's leading this one.
Thank you, Mr. Adjourn. I am going to turn this discussion over to Mrs. Rath.
Thank you.
Here that everyone is healthy. So keep up what you're doing, and I'm just thankful that everyone's here. So, Mr. Jones, may I have the little ball so I can share my screen?
I don't want to hide that.
There's this little tennis ball that I'm looking for so I can share my screen.
Have it now.
Thank you very much. Okay, oops, not that one.
Whoa.
I apologize, having a little operator error over here.
Now you see it, now you don't.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you see my screen? It looks like I have the board agenda up. What
Yes.
my Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Okay, I believe we sent you, Mr. Atherton had requested on Friday that I calculate a per pupil of each of the expansion items and share that. It was shared out with you, I believe, on Friday evening. And as you can see in this document here, hopefully it's legible. If I need to increase the size, let me know. But otherwise, right now, we are at a per pupil increase of $457, and that includes continuation and expansion. As you can see in the column in the center of the screen, that includes the per pupil for each of those items, broken down so you can see what actually makes up the $309 for the total expansion request. What is on this sheet here that we have added is, after discussing, we thought it would be good to give maybe some options to start discussions among the board about going forward based upon the input that I have received. I believe I am not out of line in stating that we feel like the $457 per pupil increase is a little high based upon the status that we're in right now and the recession that is sure to come as a result of COVID-19. So therefore, as a result, we came up as an executive team of two options that we wanted to recommend or to at least assist in facilitating getting our conversation started. So would you like for me just to proceed from there? Is it a true statement that we all feel that the 457 is too high?
Yes.
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 Okay.
I'm seeing nods by.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
With respect to that one-time bonus thing, that's not included.
No,
450.
Sir,
no,
it's
that's
not included in the 457. That would just be a one-time
Okay.
one-time funding request.
Well, is the proposal to keep that in there as a one-time request?
The way it's reflected here, yes, sir, that is definitely for discussion.
Okay, well, we're going to have that discussion, Mr. Chair.
Yes, right after we do this. It's a separate item, and let's leave it for after this one.
Sounds good.
All right. Any other questions before Ms. Rath proceeds? All right, thank you.
Okay, so the first option that we looked at as a team, option B, was to forego the maternal paternal leave in this budget cycle to cover 1/2 of the employee premium for the medical insurance, to cover 1/2 of the dental employee premium, to forego the inclement weather days for classified staff in this budget cycle. Instead of reinstating all of the teacher work days, an option we recommend here is to reinstate 5 of those work days in addition to the 5 that they received this year. So that would give them a total of 10 under this option if it were approved. We decided to forego the Gravelly Hill Middle School additional support. There's actually some options that the team has already looked at where there may be some areas where additional support can be added there instead of adding an additional position at this time. We also looked at and decided that we felt like we would forego the 2 additional school counselors for this budget cycle. And we did feel like it was important for the academically and intellectually gifted teachers to leave those 2 in to give each of our elementary schools an AIG teacher. In this proposal, we decided to not pursue the pre-K dual language program at New Hope in this budget cycle. We did leave in the 2 translators. As a result, I think we all understand the need and the importance of those positions. We did decide to forego the social and emotional learning coordinator. We did want to leave in the director of literacy because we feel like the importance of that position when you look at our data and where we want to carry our district going forward. Instead of 3 equity facilitators, we recommended in this option 2. And instead of 4 maintenance technicians in this option, we recommended 2. So as a result of those recommendations, our total per pupil increase for continuation and expansion would now be reduced to $293. Anybody have any questions? If not, I'll go ahead and go through option C.
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Brenda. I'm trying to help me understand in my time on the board, when a position has been frozen, it's not a position that's represented to the board in a budget approval line. I mean, the board just can unfreeze it. And that's what we've done in the past. So I don't understand why this position, which was the director of literacy, it was frozen, yes, but it's in here again to, I don't understand that.
I appreciate you asking that question, and that's a great question. It is.
I love how but you're being very kind.
We had to take the salary from that position to balance our budget. So in order to balance our budget previously, that position was frozen, lack of a better term, so that that salary could be utilized to balance our budget. So therefore, it is felt like those dollars are no longer in that continuation budget as a director of literacy. So in order to reinstate that position, we would need to increase our budget by that amount. Does that help?
It does. So was that money put into another position? Because if it was just used or helped to realign some other item, then the position still exists. That's what I don't get. It's just there's a few of us who's been around, and like when it's frozen and when we create a position, it still exists.
And you're asking fantastic questions. May I ask, Teresa, would you have any insight about if this position was eliminated?
Dr. H, as soon as Teresa answers, we'll.
All right.
Okay.
I don't want you to have to keep holding your hand up. So.
I appreciate that because I'm losing my patience.
I'm sorry.
No. He's just holding up his hand. I just wanted to acknowledge him that we'll get to him as soon as Teresa can answer.
I have no idea with regards to what happened to this position once it was frozen at the time by Dr. Wirt. I have no idea what budgetary decisions were made.
I was just wondering if the position was eliminated or if we still had a position number assigned. That's all. I just know that at the time that this was recommended for the position to not be filled, those dollars were then had to be utilized to balance our budget. And it was in the time of, it was the year we had to take significant, I want to say budget cuts. We had requested, this was the year we had requested a $417 per pupil increase and actually received $123. And the increase this was the year that we lost those 10 state teaching positions. as a result of the large ADM decrease. So in order to not have to actually cut teacher positions, we had to find other ways to balance the budget.
Steve, okay, will you let Steve speak?
Yeah,
I would like to.
go ahead.
Is that a go ahead?
The floor is yours.
Well, I raised this question at our last meeting, and I'm glad Brenda brought it up because my memory is very clear on this. Okay. And that position, and this is, Rhonda, I have the utmost respect for you, but you continue to say we. This, in my opinion, was not a decision made by the director of finance. Okay. This was a decision that ultimately rested on the former superintendent's desk. So if a decision was made to dissolve and take that money to balance a budget, the school board, and I was a member of the school board at that time, and so was everybody else, I believe, we were never informed. I'll be that blunt and just put it out there. So if the position was totally dissolved and the money was taken and put into balancing the budget, the board was never told. And that's not your responsibility as finance director. That was the responsibility of the former superintendent. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Right.
All right. Todd, can you unmute Matthew Roberts? He wants to ask a question and can't unmute himself for a reason.
Done.
Yeah, the reason when Rhonda's spreadsheet is up, it doesn't give me the ability to unmute, or I'm not sure how to do it yet. Rhonda, on 2 questions. On the AIG coordinators, which elementary schools are they going to be at?
I believe, if I'm recalling, it would be Central and Efland, where there are not an AIG teacher at this time.
Yeah, I figured that's where they were, that they lost those in that last, so that's positive. Second one is on our dual language pre-K, that 40,000, was that just a one-time expense, or, because this is a question I had in general, or was that an ongoing expense? Because we already had a pre-K class there. It's just switching it from English to a dual language. What was the 40,000 going to cover, and was it a yearly expense?
From my understanding, Mr. Roberts, that was a yearly expense.
Does it have? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead and ask your question.
Does it have anything to do with the company that we're working with on the resources that they provide us, or is
yes, yes, sir. That's my understanding.
So it has nothing to do with that. We're having 2 pre-K instructors versus 1 as we have now.
That is my understanding.
Okay. Next one is, you mentioned on the Gravelly Hill support, additional support, and that you may have some additional options on that. Can you go into more detail on that?
Absolutely. Todd, I need you, if at all possible, can some of my colleagues unmute themselves, or do you have to do it?
I can do it, but they can as well. Go ahead and unmute folks.
Dr.
So,
Feldman,
yes, so just a couple of things with regards to the dual language program. So that 40,000 would cover the cost of a teacher through the program that we're working with, because we need a teacher who can speak Spanish. And so it would cover the costs for that. And I'm going to actually ask Connie Crimmins, Director for EC, to speak to the Gravelly Hill question.
Before we switch over there, if I can just have a follow-up.
Sure.
excuse me, let me stop my stutter. So when we go to the bilingual program in our pre-K, do we end up with a lower student-teacher ratio?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, we already have that's an existing class. So we already have a teacher in that class who is an English speaking teacher. And we would be adding a Spanish speaking teacher. Is it that we have to pay our Spanish teaching teachers more, or are we lowering our student teacher ratio?
So my understanding is that if we were to secure a Spanish speaking teacher from the company whose name escapes me at the moment, that we
Yeah,
would
that's not important.
participate, right? So I understand, I think the cost is like $35,000 for a teacher if we go through them.
Okay. And we're paying our pre-K teachers more than that, right?
I hope so. Rhonda, can you speak to that?
Yes, sir. I believe that is as an accurate statement. Yes.
Okay. I'm just, because I'm not wanting to do away with the bilingual pre-K program. So I'm just drilling down on this a little bit, trying to understand the details on why it's going to cost us an additional $40,000. So if we went with the dual language pre-K, we would continue to have our English speaking teacher, correct?
Not in the program is my understanding. And
So
we would need to secure a Spanish speaking teacher for the.
So, and just I'm just going to ask it bluntly. If we're going to be paying them 32,000 and then another 4,000 for or 6,000 for whatever, why are we having to increase it by 40,000? Something doesn't add up, is what I'm saying.
Mr. Roberts, this is Dr. Gammon.
Yes,
the 40,000 is an expansion of the pre-K or the pre-K dual language program. So it's essentially a new classroom where we would be hiring a teacher. Their cost maybe a little bit lower than the 32,000, but we also are spending around 15,000 plus on the materials to outfit the class.
Right.
That same type of cycle was what happened the first time. So this is just expanding that. So we're doing it again. That's why it's that amount.
Which that's good. Now we're getting into what's really happening on that. So one, where's the classroom space that New Hope to expand it?
So there isn't additional classroom space at New Hope to expand it. Technically it's expanding the dual language program, but it would replace a current classroom. Does that?
Okay. It does, because I'm really getting, because I don't understand why we can't continue with that. If we're replacing a current classroom, does that mean that we'll no longer have a need for the English speaking pre-K instructor in that classroom? I understand we may have to, and Dr. Gammon, with all due respect, if we're replacing an existing classroom, I'm not sure why we're having to spend money to upgrade it.
I believe his comments were to add additional materials, so you have them in.
I understand the additional materials, but that's insignificant compared to upgrading the classroom. And if it's additional materials of $40,000, and that includes the instructor, if I understood it, that I don't understand how this would end up being a negative. If anything, if we're paying an instructor less after we buy the additional materials, it looks to me like it is going to benefit having that class for part of the 40% of our students who are not performing. This is one of the budget increases that was actually addressing our needy students. And I'm just trying to understand if we already have a classroom with a teacher What is our additional cost besides the materials? I'm just asking because I'm hearing silence. Make sure I'm not muted.
So my understanding, Mr. Roberts, is that the 40,000 would cover the cost through Participate Learning to secure a pre-K dual language teacher. So again, it's not.
Do we have to, other than that, do we have the 40,000? Is that paying that teacher's salary, or is that just their finder fee?
No, that's my understanding is that pays the teacher's salary. We participate. That would be the cost. And there are some additional costs for materials for, again, we would be moving from a straight English-based pre-K classroom to a dual language English-based pre-K classroom. So there would be additional materials that are needed.
Right, the materials I understand. What would the current classroom teacher who's an English speaker, what would their job be in going forward?
Right,
If we continue with this.
Right, so we would be displacing a teacher, and so hopefully being able to absorb that teacher in another position should one.
Right. Yes. So, but in effect, we're able to get a dual language class, knowing that we have turnover, without probably having to lay anybody off. So we could, even though that's showing a potential $40,000 increase, it, if anything, could be a potential cost savings. But it really does help one of our needy groups. So I really don't, I have a strong reservations with dropping it when it sounds to me like it's going to be really a net zero or a potential cost savings. And I'm not doing it for a cost savings, but if it's only $1,500 or $2,000 to buy the materials, we already have the classroom set up. So it's just a matter of securing the teacher. And I think we should do it.
All right, so I have we have a question from Sarah.
Question is, I'm looking at some of the trade-offs in this option B, and when I think about the place our kids are likely to be as they come back to school next year, a couple of these, like the additional school counselors and potentially the social and emotional learning coordinator, both of those, they feel like they are, when they were in the original request, I was like, these original requests were like right on time for what our kids are going to need. And when I weigh that against like the cost of the medical insurance subsidy, the dental subsidy, it makes me wonder about that sort of trade-off between those two, because it's quite expensive. And I don't remember where sorry, this is like two questions at once. One is sort of around the like benefits of having that additional social and emotional support for students. And the other is perhaps some of those savings from the medical and dental insurance, if what we already offer is like pretty good compared to surrounding districts, and it's pretty comparable. So I don't know where we stand with the medical and dental relative to other districts, but I would be personally more inclined to go more towards the like supports for students. So would love to hear more about that, about those choice points from staff who discussed it, or whomever would be the right staff.
This is Rhonda, and I appreciate the question. I will share from my perspective that I am not aware of another school district that is doing this for their staff. If I recall correctly, this is something that we were looking at when we were in discussions with the Board of County Commissioners.
That's right.
Because this is something that the county does offer their staff.
Agree.
Right. That was our conversation.
Yeah, the top three were really county benefits that we were looking at as a possibility for our employees for retention.
Correct.
And if I
Will,
just may, I'm sorry, Mr. Roberts, I
no,
just
please
wanted to
finish.
share the reason I primarily have my screen up is that as you're having discussions and you want me to make any changes, I can do that and you can see right away what the impact will be on that per pupil.
And Will and Sarah, I actually, knowing the emotional issues that the students are going to come back with, and I really do think that we need the counselors there and that. So that it's unfortunate, but I'd rather see our support being towards the students more right now.
Right.
Comment.
Go ahead, Dr. H.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up where Sarah Smiley left off. I think our budget should reflect services to students and children who are going to need help when they come back from all of this horrific historical stuff that's going on in this country today. And I would not support taking out the 2 additional school counselors. I think we have allowed loss of positions at 2 of our most critical elementary schools, Central and Eflin Cheeks. And in several instances, and I won't get into it, unbeknownst to the board from a prior administration, to our 2 neediest schools where our children need the greatest help we can give them. And we need to be looking at not trying to match whatever the county employees have, because that inequity has been going on for over 50 years. And you're not going to tackle it all this year, not under this situation. But let's not shortchange our kids. Let's do what we need to do for children. And that's where my focus is going to be, and that's where my 1 vote's going to be.
All right. Anybody else have any comments before we talk about the option C or approach to this?
Did you say we're about to talk about option C?
Well, option C or something else. I mean,
Well, okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I told you, I have a level of discomfort with all of these positions. I do agree with the counselors. I don't like seeing those zeroed out, and then all of the top heavy positions at the bottom. I don't agree with them. And I still stand firm with this directive literacy. I never voted to eliminate that position number or that position in the county. So it still should be in the district. So it still should be on our books. We simply just need to fund it. But all these other positions, I can't support them, but I would like to have those 2 counselors back.
So, board, maybe what makes sense, I'm just going to throw this out there as a suggestion, given Rhonda has the ability to update this on the fly. The other thing I'd just like to bring up to the board is that whichever way we go, we do need to be conscientious of the per pupil total.
Right.
I just, as I've mentioned to the board in past, I think 232 is too high given where we are, just with everything going on.
Right.
Historically, when we had a great economy, we got 186, so I think we've got to be realistic on what we're going to get. But with that, I would just recommend maybe we go line by line on C and see how everybody feels, and we'll make the changes if everybody's okay with that approach.
Well, I got a comment to make. Sure. Chapel Hill Carborough is going to be presenting 393. Is that correct?
391.
I was off by $2. 391. If we don't present something comparable, we're shortchanging our kids. I'm just going to put it that way. We are going to be shortchanging our kids. And I've seen county budgets for a long, long time. If they've got $30 million to throw away on light rail, if they've got the ability to lose our impact fees, if they've got the ability to lose a free jail site, and I can go on and on and on, then we need to have the ability to fight for our kids. And we should go fight for them and let the buck stop with the county commissioners. It's that simple.
And Steve, I agree on that, but I agree, Lau, let's just walk each line down. And we may have to have an option C and option D as we go down, because I may be the only one that wants to continue with the bilingual pre-K program. But just go down, like on the maternity leave, I'd come in and say, hey, it's already zeroed out. We'd keep it zeroed out. And see what kind of consensus each board member is on each option as we go down.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm recommending, is just going to C and doing that. So with that, Rhonda, if we can just go starting with maternity leave on C.
Absolutely. Do we want to address the one-time funding right now, or would we prefer just to go through the option?
Let's just go through the options, because that one-time funding isn't calculated in, is it?
That is correct.
Okay, yeah, let's leave that out. This is the difficult part, I would say. All right.
Okay.
With that, I'm just going to go around the board, if you will, to get your view on the maternity leave. Let's start with Matthew Roberts.
Keep it zero.
Okay, Hillary.
I would keep it zero, unfortunately.
Okay, Brenda.
Same, zero.
Okay, Sarah.
Same here.
Okay, Tony.
Zero.
Okay, Dr. H. Okay. All right. Unfortunately, I agree as well on this one. Medical insurance, we'll just go again. Matthew Roberts.
Keep it zero.
Okay, Hillary.
Can you come back to me?
Okay. Brenda.
I know, I'm struggling with that. Our families, speaking of kids, our families need insurance.
Right. That's what I'm struggling with. And so many people.
I know, we talk about children, this medical insurance, it's for our children.
Yeah, board, I just want to remind you, I don't disagree with you. I just want to remind you, this is subsidizing their insurance. So they do have insurance. This is just paying a portion of it. I don't want anybody to
understand.
I understand.
Sort of in the middle of a global pandemic, I'm thinking a lot about medical coverage.
If I may offer a little context, this was based on paying or subsidizing the employee-only portion that is paid for medical insurance coverage.
Yeah.
Oh, this has nothing to do with their children?
This was based on looking at subsidizing what the employee-only premium cost is for our staff members. Right. So as you add spouse or children, that premium goes up. So we would be looking at just funding the employee-only portion of that, is what this was based on.
I'll say zero. Hesitantly, I'll say zero, because I think parents need to stay well to take care of their kids, but I'll say zero because we can't have everything.
All right, Sarah.
I agree with that. Yep, zero.
Tony. Go ahead, Tony.
Zero.
Okay. Dr. H.
Zero.
Okay, Hillary.
Back to zero.
Okay. And myself as well. Next item, the dental care.
Okay.
I'll start at the bottom or go backwards.
Okay.
Dr. H.
Zero.
Tony,
Zero.
Sarah,
Zero.
Brenda,
Okay, do we have 225 here?
Yes, ma'am. That is the full premium. That was funding the full dental premium and nothing on the medical insurance.
Okay. Yeah, they don't need their teeth fixed. Zero.
all right, Hillary,
Sadly, zero.
Something.
Matthew Roberts,
Zero.
all right, me as well.
As
Okay,
you can see, that dropped us down to a total of 205 so far.
okay. The next one is the incremental weather days. So this would be for our certified staff that they would get 2 incremental weather days.
Classified staff.
Classified. Yeah.
Classified, sorry. Yes, classified. All right, Matthew Roberts.
Keep it at zero.
Okay, Hillary.
Hold on, I'm lost it on my screen. Sorry.
Okay.
Line 50.
So yeah, I accidentally closed out the window.
We can come back to you.
Yeah, come back to me, please.
Okay, Brenda.
I want to give it to them, 150. I want to give them those 2 days.
Okay, Sarah.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm inclined to, I would like to put that in and see what it does to our totals.
Right.
Okay. Tony.
Put 50 in as well.
Okay. Dr. H.
Zero.
Okay, Hillary.
Leave it in for now.
So you're in support of the 150?
Yeah.
And I am as well in support of the 150. All right, so with that, yep, if you could, the next item would be reinstate the teacher work days. So there are multiple options here. I just want to make sure the board gets to pick. So one option is partial days, and the original was all days. So option C, how many days was that?
2.
Okay, so we have 2, 5, and 0. Is that what it is?
That's what is reflected here. Yes, we could entertain or have discussions about the increment that would be the pleasure of the board. It is roughly $16,500 a day.
Okay, well, to make it easy, what I'll ask board is 0, 2, 5, or all. So if, you know, I don't think we would be able to do all, but let's just go around the room. Okay, Dr. Will.
Will, can I ask a clarifying question on this one too, without getting us too far off track?
Please do.
I remember that last year we added 5 of these work days back in.
We did.
That's
I'm
correct.
curious if you know, if anyone happens to know, the debates at that time was that TAs were not using all of their work days; they were taking vacation days instead. Are those 5 days being used?
I would have to go back to pull the actual details, and I'll be happy to do that and report it to you in the board notes if that would be sufficient at the end of the week. We added the 5 days to the beginning of the year. If I recall, there were still some who did choose to not work it, but overall, the majority of them did work those first 5 days.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
So Sarah, let me pause for a second and ask Dr. Felder if she can comment a little bit, because she did bring this as a recommendation. So maybe we can get some perspective from her on her feeling of bringing this forward. Dr. Felder?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Dr. Felder, are you on mute? I can't see you on my panel.
I'm so sorry.
There you go. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. So yes, the recommendation is to reinstate more of the teacher workdays. So you can see what we initially were recommending, and we continue even with option C to recommend at least 2. We have heard in the listen and learns and through other means that these days are important and serve a good purpose and supporting student learning, and with regards to having the opportunity to work closely with teachers during these days. And so the recommendation is we cannot do them all, to do some.
Thank you, Dr. Felder. All right. Any other questions before we go around the room? All right, Dr. H?
5.
Days. Okay. Tony? Tony McKnight, how many days?
0.
0. Okay. Sarah?
Is 5 days this number 82.5 in the
Yes.
number I support? Yeah.
Okay. Brenda, you said 5? Okay. Hillary?
5, and it would be helpful to have that information from Miranda and the board notes at the end of the week.
Okay. Matthew Roberts?
2.
2. Okay, and I would support 5 as well. And so that item. All right. So next item is the Gravelly Hill School additional support. Does anybody have any questions on this one before we go around the room?
Yeah, I just want to clarify if I can. It sounded like there was a viable option when this one was zeroed out in the initial recommendation.
Can you mute everybody real quick? Just do a global mute. Okay, go ahead, Matthew.
It sounded like initially there was a viable option which justified zeroing this one out. Just want to make sure that I understood that correctly.
Okay.
You did, Mr. Matthews. I'm sorry, Mr. Roberts, you did.
Okay.
That's correct understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions before we go through? All right. Brenda.
Line 52.
I can't see it.
Yes, it's 52.
Yes, it is.
Oh my gosh, it jumped. It closed. Shoot.
We can come back to you, Brenda.
Okay.
We'll start with Sarah.
I touched my screen. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Sarah?
I was originally very compelled by this need for additional support after hearing the principal speak a little bit about the needs there, but as long as the superintendent feels good at 0, I will go with 0.
Okay.
I will as well.
Okay, Brenda. Okay. Let's go with Tony McKnight. Okay. Hillary?
0.
Dr. H? You might be on mute, Dr. H.
0.
Okay. And Matthew Roberts?
0.
Okay. And myself is 0 based on the superintendent recommendation as well. All right, that one stays. Okay, 2 additional school counselor support. So this is, which line is this?
53.
Right.
Okay.
53.
And so any questions before we start? Or clarity? Thank you.
That help?
Yes,
Yes. Thank you.
Do I need to go larger?
No, that's good.
We're not blind.
Okay, and I know sometimes, I don't know what it looks like on your end.
I have my glasses, I have that face.
All right. Okay, with that, with no questions, we'll start with Tony.
Like keep it 80,000.
Okay, this one is 138,000.
Okay.
So
Keep
you
it.
want to keep it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go with Hillary.
138. That's for 2 counselors, right?
That is correct.
Yes, I want to keep that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see, Dr. H.
138.
Okay. Let's see, Matthew Roberts.
Keep both counselors 138.
Okay. Sarah.
Yep, same here.
Okay. Brenda.
Same here, 138.
Okay. And I'm as well. All right. Next item is the AIG teachers. And this is for Central and Upland, I believe.
That is correct.
Okay. All right, we'll start.
Will, for clarity.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. If we're in favor of both of them, it's 160, which would put one at Central and Eflin who lost theirs. If we only go with one, it'll either be a 50-50 split or at one school. Is that correct?
So, great question, Mr. Roberts. And so the discussion was that if we were only able, while 2 are desirable, if we were only able to get one, we would then have to rethink how to leverage the AIG teacher across all 7 elementary schools. So right now, the process that's used to do that is one of equality. And we would look at leveraging the AIG teacher more through an equity lens. And so by that, I mean, there would need to be some sharing. So it would almost be like there's a pool. And based on the needs at each school, not only with regards to support students, but also how can they help build teacher capacity, which is where in the classroom, which is where the students spend the bulk of their day. And so we build up the teacher capacity. So again, ideally option A is what we would prefer, but again, one would be better than none.
All right. Any other questions?
No.
All right, we'll start with Hillary.
160.
Okay. Sarah.
Yeah, 160.
Okay. Dr. H.
I never should have lost those positions. 160.
Matthew Roberts.
160.
Brenda.
160.
Tony McKnight.
160.
And myself is also keep the 2 positions. All right. Okay. So we do have 160 for that. Okay, the next item is, let's see, the pre-K dual language. All right.
So, Mr. Atherton, before the board votes on this particular item, I do have some clarifying information with regards to what the $40,000 covers. And so there's a correction. The cost for the teacher through Participate is actually $17,500. And so the remainder of the funds covers the cost for converting the classroom to Spanish resources. So it's for the resources that would be needed.
So can I clarify on that? Because that really makes it where I'm even going to push it harder. The converting that classroom for the Spanish resources, that's pretty much a one-time deal. I mean, each year you're going to have to add resources, but it's a significant number of that would be reusable each year. Is that a fair statement?
That sounds about right, yes.
All right, any other questions? All right, we'll start with Sarah.
I'm gonna say 0 for this one, and I'll tell you why. I know that a lot of work's been done to do the pre-thinking for this program. I'm excited for this program. But when I think about us coming into school next year, I really think it's going to be important to sort of focus on excellence in what we're doing and like re-establishing what we're doing. So I don't think this is the year to expand it, in my opinion.
Okay. Dr. H?
40,000.
Okay. Brenda?
40.
Hillary?
40.
Okay. Tony?
0.
Okay. Matthew Roberts?
40.
Okay. And I am a 40 as well. So that gives us 40K for this item. All right. The 2 translators? Okay. Any questions?
Initially, yeah. So initially it was 160 for 2 translators. So this is really just going to be 1 translator if we go with 80,000 on option C.
Well, this one's open to the board. The board can say 0, 1,
So-
or 2. So 80.
0, 1, or 2. Okay, that's
Okay. All right. We'll start with Brenda.
1 translator.
Okay. Matthew?
1.
Okay. Dr. H?
1.
Okay. Tony?
1.
Sarah?
2.
Okay. Hillary?
2.
Okay. And I would support 1 as well. We have one that's by the majority. Let's see. Okay. Line 57, this would be the social emotional learning coordinator. Any questions on this item?
Can Dr. Fielder, can you kind of describe your vision of this person?
Sure. So the idea is to use the position to support social emotional learning in schools. So the position would be used in schools, supporting social emotional programs in schools, both in terms of providing professional development and not what we call sometimes the drive-by variety, meaning we provide the professional development and then we just sort of hope and pray that it sticks and it works. The best professional development is the type where it's ongoing. And so where you are coached and you're given feedback, et cetera. And so we know that in this district, we have endeavored to introduce restorative justice, but we also know that those practices are implemented in a with a lot of variance, so to say. And that's because we've got one person, which is Ms. Cobb, who is the Director of Student Services and overseeing counselors, nurses, overseeing social workers, and trying to support schools with implementation of PBIS, restorative justice practices, et cetera. So this person's role would be much like the 2 counselors in terms and the equity facilitators really focused on supporting schools and providing that other layer. We know from our data that we have great gaps in our students' learning. And we also know, however, that just focusing on the academics is not sufficient. We have to simultaneously focus on social emotional learning. And we need support in order to be able to do that.
Thank you.
All right, any additional questions? All right. So we'll start with Dr. H.
I'm for leaving it in there.
Okay. Tony McKnight.
74,000.
Okay, so yes. Sarah.
Yeah, I want to add it back in.
Okay. Brenda.
No.
Okay.
And you don't have to call me anymore. I'm no all the way down.
Okay, so if here down. Okay.
I'm out.
Okay, I'll just put
No people.
No. Okay, Hillary.
Keeping it.
Okay. And Matthew.
Keep it.
Okay. And I am in support of this as well. So that's that item stays in for now. All right, 58, Director of Literacy. So are there any questions on this? I know, Brenda, you felt that this should already be in contingency. So would you be yes for this one?
Yeah, because I know we did not vote to eliminate this position. So it exists. Our attorney is there and he can tell us that. If we didn't vote to eliminate it, the position is there. So yeah, I support it. That's why I said, well.
I got a comment.
Okay.
Comment.
Go ahead, Dr. H.
No, listen, this cannot be skirted, okay?
Right.
This cannot be skirted. I would like to see, can't do it tonight, but I would like to see it in the notes coming out this weekend, okay? There seems to have been some kind of decision made without the board fully understanding what was happening with the prior administration, where I'm suspecting or I'm feeling that another position was created to take care of literacy, and then literacy reappears. So I'm with Brenda. The money is there, and I'm not supportive of refunding something that's already there. I just want to know where it is.
Right,
It's been
right.
around for too long, and I don't like this smell. I'm just saying that, and it's got nothing to do with the new superintendent. It has nothing to do with our finance director, but it has a whole lot to do with people gone long ago.
So I appreciate y'all's comments. Do we have any other comments?
Will,
Yes, Tony.
with Dr. H and Brenda.
Okay.
Will, you gonna get your vote on this one? Dr. Fielder, I understand the need for it, but I'm in agreement that I think the funds were used for another position that was supposed to be doing this, so I'm not in support of it either. I'd take it out.
Okay. So I guess I need some clarity here before I go around the room and actually ask the question. So it sounds like Dr. Alkiotis, Brenda, and Tony, your position is this line shouldn't be there. It's already covered in contingency, and we believe it's being covered by another position somehow.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, I
This
just
needs to
wanted
be a
say it out
reallocation of the
loud and
resources.
restate it.
Need to find out who's covering it. I'm following
May I ask
that
a
group too.
I'm sorry. May I ask a clarifying question? What if it's not? Just what if it's not?
If it's not, I'm in total support of you finding somebody.
I would like to see what positions have been added to the Orange County Schools roster of employees for the last 4 years at the central office. Not at the schools, but at the central office level. Particular emphasis on CNI. That's what I would like to see.
I'm sorry, I did not catch that, Dr. H. Would you mind repeating that for me?
Well, I'll make it short. Just any and all CNI new positions for the last 4 or 5 years.
Can I add a comment with regard to the Director of Literacy position? This is Teresa.
Go ahead.
What I was able to just go back and what I was able to determine is that part of the Director of Literacy funds was used to pay the differential for Dr. Jake Henry's salary. And then there was a balance of $40,000, and I'm not sure what that went to. If I had to guess, and I'm not a betting person, it might have, the remainder may have been used to fund part of an executive director's position. Again, I'm not sure, but that I do know that at least half of the money was used to pay the differential for Jake Hendry's salary. And I've been able to look at that just from going back to my emails and yes.
Teresa, you need to not talk about that in public session.
Yep.
Oh,
I think it needs to be researched. And I think, Teresa, you got a 50-50 there. We need to know where the other 50 went.
yeah. But then my point still remains that we never voted to eliminate the position. So it has I'm not an HR person, but there's a number assigned to each position. So that position is somewhere sitting, unassigned without a person. And all Dr. Felder needs, is just to get her a person and put in there. Because I agree with
Just
Dr.
answering
Felder.
the question that you posed. Somebody, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. So just for clarity, I just want to bridge the gaps of everything I'm hearing. Is the position has never been eliminated, but it sounds like the funds for the position have been reallocated. And the question is, what were they reallocated for? And it sounds like we may need funds to fund this, even though the position is available. But to your point, where did it go? So I would recommend that we leave it in for this academic exercise while we find out what's going on. But if the board feels highly against that, we will have to, if we find out that the funds have been reallocated, we will have to have this discussion again. Because the intent is we'll approve the total amount, right? Our contingency fund and this continuation budget, I mean. All right. I haven't heard from Sarah. Sarah, your feelings on this?
Well, putting aside what happened to the position, I think we need a director of literacy. So I would support keeping this in here.
Awesome.
In the event that is not already funded from someplace else.
All right, Hillary?
I feel the same way. I think we're kind of in crisis mode for literacy in our district, and I hope we can figure out what happened to the position, but in any case, I think we have to fund it regardless.
Okay. And, okay. I just want to confirm, let's see, Tony, you had said yes as well. Okay. And I am as well a yes. I feel this is critical where we are, and we've got to figure this out. So I'd say leave it in, and then we get the data at the end of the week.
Right.
What's the official count?
We're up to 270.
No, I'm talking about what's the official vote count on the director of literacy?
Everybody it's all yeses. We have nobody that said no. The contention is
money, right?
Well, yes.
The question is, where's the money?
Right. The question is it not covered in the continuation budget? And if not, where's the money allocated? And we're leaving it in there, assuming that we're going to hear that it is covered by some other means, and we just need to understand that just for the budgeting process.
Good.
Well, I'll go along with leaving it in, but I do want an update on where the money is right now.
All right, we will get that through. Well, I'm not going to speak for Dr. Felder. Dr. Felder, do you have any concerns with getting that by the end of the week? During your update?
Need to be by the end of the week.
Oh, we'll get that information for you.
Okay. I just
No problem.
I just didn't want to speak for you, Dr. Felder.
You'll get it. Thank you.
All right. Next is the 3 equity facilitators, line 59. All right. Any questions on this? You'll see that it's listed as the first one is for the the 3, and then you have 2, and then you have 1. So, so the options are 0, 1, 2, or 3. Any questions from the board members on this one?
I just have a question about what might change about what can be done in the district in a year with the difference between the 3 and the 2 and the 1. I know 0 is where we're at now.
Keeling, are you online?
Yes, I am online. I mean, I will make however the board wants me to make it work. I was gonna have those positions to, as I said, to like teach the classes and to like work with our identified populations. So working with our African American students, another one working with Latino students, another one working with culturally relevant pedagogy and training teachers, community, parents, running affinity groups. It's just all of those different segments. But like I said, I'll make it work however y'all want me to make it work.
Well, I have a question. So how does it, I know we talked about, and I probably missed it, how will those positions roll into the equity plan that we have? I mean, is that addressed in our plan?
I don't think in the plan it spells out positions. So every year I pull my goals from the plan. And so they would be assisting with fulfilling the goals. Having culturally relevant classrooms and schools is in the plan. So recruitment is in the plan. They would be assisting with recruitment of diverse populations. I'm trying to remember everything else that's in the plan. So really it's just
you good
plan and them. Yeah, they're gonna actually assist with us getting the plan carried out. They're gonna assist with the equity task force, the equity student equity teams. They'll be assisting with those. So just really a lot of direct support in schools and with students. I want them working closely with students. So that's what it would look like to me.
And if I could add, having these positions would help to accelerate the work. And so I guess as a board, you have to decide, are we going to move slowly? Although I must say the work, and I'll continue to say that Dr. Keeling has done in these few months, I've never seen anything like this before. And so I can only imagine with the additional support, how much quicker we can accelerate the work. Again, this is work that requires intense presence and touch. You can't just provide a professional development and check the box. Well, we provided the professional development. It's ongoing conversations, it's ongoing coaching, it's observing, giving feedback. And so the additional positions would help us to accelerate the work.
Will?
Yeah, Matthew?
Dr. Keelan, if we went with 2 instructors, would you still envision having them do classes at our 2 high schools?
Yes.
Would there be?
If you went with 1, would you be able to have classes at both high schools?
No, probably not.
Okay, that's fair.
Well, if you wouldn't have it at both high schools, well, would you just have it at one? Or you said you'd make it work.
Right, I would have it at 1. I would probably have it at start at Orange, and because that's where they asked for it, and do that for this year.
All right. Any other comments from any of the board members?
I've got one comment. If we're gonna do it, let's do it. I would support 2, 1 for each high school.
All right. Any other comments? All right, I'll add a comment here. You know, if we're really going to do some fundamental changes, we've got to do something differently. And I think it starts with this. You know, we mentioned when we started, we wanted to get Dr. Keeling in here, identify what we want to do, some changes we need to be made. I think this is that first step. I do think when we talk about students' needs and when they get back, we definitely have an inequity right now across the board with, you know, internet access, families getting the materials they need. And I think this is a big area where we're going to need all the support we can get. That's all for me. All right, we'll just go around the room. So the options are 0, 1, 2, or 3. So with that, I will start with Tony McKnight.
2.
2. Okay, Sarah?
Yes, I will support 2. I would also support 3 if that's where the majority of the board lands.
Okay, I'll put you 2-3. Okay, Matthew?
2.
Okay, Hillary?
Definitely 3. I think that this situation and what we'll be dealing with for the next academic year, to your point, has affected families disproportionately in our districts. And I think this is going to be really, really critical work in the year ahead.
Okay. Brenda?
I'll just change and say 1.
Okay.
I wasn't going to, I would say 0, but I don't want to hurt our equity department.
All right. Dr. H?
2.
2. And I would be down for 3. That means we have 2 as the number.
Yeah, right.
All right. The maintenance technicians. So does anybody have any questions or comments on this?
I have comments.
Okay. Before we go to comments, Rhonda, could you just review the 2 recommendations? So one was 4 in multiple areas, and then the 2, could you remind us what that equated to?
Two technicians at 96,000. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes. So originally, wasn't it multiple crafts?
Originally, it was multiple crafts. Yes.
With the 2, what does that crafts drop down to?
Sarah, are you on the line? Sarah Pitts?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
So if we had took you down the 2 maintenance technicians, I would, am I speaking out of term when I would probably say electrical and HVAC?
One would be an electrical technician and the other one would be a general maintenance technician.
Okay.
The general maintenance technician. I'm going to be real blunt. I went into a kindergarten class, not kindergarten, one of the elementary classrooms, and there was a missing toilet with a sewer gas coming out. Would they be taking care of that?
So the general maintenance technician could be assigned to assist our 1 plumber that we have currently.
Which 1 plumber for as many schools that we have are kind of low. If we went with 3 techs, what would the 3rd one be?
It would be a general technician, and keep in mind we do have a plumber position that is open and has been posted. We are just currently struggling to find a qualified, I guess, applicant at the price that we're paying.
Isn't that the problem? We're not paying competitive wages for plumbers, electricians, and HVAC people?
So that is a problem, but also the problem is quantity. We don't have enough, largely or probably because we are not competitive salary wise, but we just need also physical bodies, given the number or the amount of maintenance work in this district.
I think this is a good CTE opportunity within our school.
I'm totally agreement with, this looks like a good opportunity for Shannon Braxton and her group, and in regards to talking about apprenticeships once again.
And Will, when we vote on this one, can we go from 4 down to 0?
Yeah, I mean, we can go from 4 to 0, and whatever the number is, that's what we would go with. I assume if you pick 4, you would support anything below 4, like we did with the.
Oh yeah, that's actually that's a good point. Yes, sir.
Okay. You know, are there any other comments from anyone on this before we go around?
I would just like for the board to consider many comments that come up about the maintenance needs in schools at the Listen and Learns. And Sarah, I don't know if you have data readily available with regards to the number of tickets that we receive. Also heard from schools directly with regards to concerns with regards to maintenance. And a big issue here is just not having staff to address all of the needs in a timely fashion.
Dr. Felder.
Yes, Dr. Felder, I'm frozen.
No, we can
hear me.
Yes, we can hear
Sorry.
you.
We currently address about 5,000 work orders a year. And if we do not support these 4 technicians, the amount of square footage that our current technicians will be servicing will be almost double the industry recommended standard.
That gives me a question, Will.
Go ahead.
Sarah, and in the original presentation, and you just referenced it, the expanded square footage, would 2 maintenance techs basically keep us flat at number of maintenance techs to our square footage, or would it add something?
The square footage will just go up a slight amount.
Mm-hmm.
When Cedar Ridge comes on, it's going to add it up.
Yeah, the average square footage per tech would probably go up.
So let me restate, Sarah, if you don't mind your statement. I think what Sarah was asking is, when it does go up, would 2 additional technicians make it flat? Is that what you were asking, Sarah?
Yeah, the techs per square foot.
We expect
or the opposite.
It will still be a slight increase in square footage per technician if 2 are added.
I think that's an honest statement.
Yeah, and Sarah, let me ask, are there any other board comments, questions?
Well,
Go ahead, Tony.
I'd be in support of 2, maybe looking at adding an additional 2 in next year's budget.
Okay. So before we ask or go around, Sarah, the only question I have is the people we would add on, would they only handle tickets, or what would their role be in the any of the maintenance and capital improvements that we have planned? Would they have any interaction in that, or just strictly maintenance and tickets?
Currently, right now, I would expect one to be electrical trade, as we have high numbers for electrical work and we only have 2 certified electricians. The other position would be, actually both positions would be addressing pretty much just maintenance needs. Mr. Mincy could use staff to assist with capital improvement projects as he needed.
Okay. All right. With that, let's just go around and get everybody's view. So the numbers are 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0. If you pick whatever number you pick, I'll assume that you're okay with a lower number by the majority. We'll start with Dr. Halkiotis.
Well, I'm only supporting 4, so don't assume I'm supporting 3.
So you
So I will respectfully request, don't count me in on the 3 2s or 1.
Okay.
1 4.
Okay.
I'll be outvoted anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's a moot point.
All right. Let's see, Sarah.
I would support 3.
3. Okay. Brenda.
1.
Okay. Tony.
2.
Okay. Matthew Roberts.
3.
Okay. And Hillary.
4.
And I will support 4 as well. So.
Why, I will support 4.
Okay. Then we have.
Love it.
That was easy.
So there you go. That's 4. Okay. So if you can update that. All right. So we're at
Look at that.
290. Okay. Are there any comments or questions since we've gone through this? Are there any other thoughts that anybody has on this before we discuss a motion? I just want to give anybody a chance to say something else.
I got a question. What does this actually do to the dental assistance that we started a couple of years ago?
Dental assistance.
The self-funding program we got involved in a couple of years ago.
This won't impact that, Dr. H. That's a very good question, and I appreciate you asking it. We're still continuing to build our equity in that program, and the goal is when we get enough equity built to begin enhancing either enhancing the package or covering the employees' premiums.
Yeah, I just asked the question because I think it would be nice if Chapel Hill's going to stick with the 393. We should at least be in the 300s, even if it's the low 300s, because they'll pay attention to both school systems if they're coming in within a reasonable range. I think the voters sent a message to the county commissioners.
Hold up, hold up. Don't change the number yet.
I was just seeing what it would do.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely want to make sure, the board weighs in. So other thoughts around this or any of them, whether it's maternal, medical, dental, or any of these items to be?
My thoughts are before we add any of those, I want to see our plan for addressing lost classroom time and what that is going to cost us. That hopefully the state is going to give us permission to start school early. And I want us to be prepared with the resources to start it early. And if that means that we're going to have an extra month for the next school year, we need to have the money in this budget saying, hey, we're going to do it. And if the state says we can't, then we don't. But right now, we know our students are struggling from getting new curriculum added, and they're going to be behind. And we have an obligation to try to get them caught up, which means that I would like to have a line item here before we add anything else to say, hey, what would it cost us to have an extra month of school next year? And it's not going to be cheap.
All right. Any other comments?
I'll chime in on that, which is that I agree. I think we're likely going to need some really, hopefully, additional time at some point, and it's going to be expensive. Ms. Rath, you gave us an estimate of what it costs to do one additional day of school, and it was very high. I know you probably don't have that in front of you right now, but the number is really humongous. Oh, it's fine. It's not on here.
Sorry, I'm drawing a total blank right now. I apologize.
It was when we were talking about where we're going to have to extend time at the end of the school year, and it was very, very, very expensive. I don't know if there's ever a world where we can like go back to the commissioners and say like, or whether we should put something in here. Everybody's shaking their head. You can't do that.
No,
You're not
I'll
gonna-
answer that. We can always go to the commissioners and ask for money.
They can always say no.
They can always
I
say
would
no,
agree with
but they
that.
can
Well, if it's,
always ask.
I mean, if it's never happened, then I would be
Now's the
inclined
time
to
to
add
ask.
some cushion in here that we would not be able to explain very well. So maybe it's not very sellable. But if we're trying to look for a way to go over 300, I certainly would put in something for supplemental education, something. But I just fear the number would be so expensive that there's just no way we're going to get it.
You know,
In my communications with the state, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dr. H.
what I was going to say is Chapel Hill, and Brenda, you may remember this years ago, used to put a contingency item in their expansion budget in the event of some unforeseen event that would come along. I think there's been enough unforeseen events with this virus business.
Right.
That what Matthew said a minute ago, if we wanted to try to enhance catch-up opportunities, why not put a couple of $100,000 in there and leave it at the good intention of the superintendent?
Yeah, I'd call it coronavirus student advancement.
Sure.
For student support.
Student,
Whatever you want to call it.
whatever you want to call it. And I'd go 250 to 300,000.
I'm good with that too.
All right. So Dr. Felder, your feelings on this?
I couldn't press my buttons fast enough. Please, please do it. Oh, yes.
All right. So yeah, if you can insert a row.
And I like putting it at the top. Educational
that.
support.
I like that.
Okay.
Oh, I love that number too, 321.
All right. Anybody have, without me going around polling, can I get a negative poll? Does anybody have any concerns with the 250? All right. Okay. So with that, I believe we've covered all the items. I think we have landed by majority to this. Do we have a motion to approve this budget, this portion of the budget?
Motion to approve option C.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so now let's go to the one-time funding, which would be a separate item. I'm talking to Chapel Hill as well to be involved with that item as well, for us to present that. This would be for all of our staff who did not get the bump pay increase last year. And seeing how we aren't able to do the maternity, medical, and dental, I definitely hope the board would consider pushing this forward as a request, not as part of our individual budget. But with that, any comments or questions?
Is Chapel Hill going to request this?
So Chapel Hill was supposed to do their budget last Thursday. They did not get to that because of all the other items going on with Corona. They're going to have another meeting this week, and they will be discussing it. So I know they're going to discuss it. I cannot tell you if it will be passed or not. My expectation is yes, as a separate item it would be, but I don't know that until the full board meets.
Well, all I say is if they're going to put it in there, then I think we should put it in there too, as a separate standalone.
Yeah, the intention would be to present it as we did the equity plan, as here's a joint request for teachers and staff of Orange County.
You mean for both school systems?
Yes. So it would come in with, here is Orange, here's Chapel Hill, the total's here. We would like to see this for all of our teachers and staff for Orange County.
So it's not $1 million for each system. It's a.
Theirs would be, yeah.
This would be higher than ours, Dr. H. That is based upon our staff numbers.
Okay, I got you. All right.
But if it would be a line item that the county would refuse and our priorities would stay with option C if they took that line item out.
Correct. It would be just like we did with equity. It would be a separate line item for both that we would present.
Rhonda?
Yes.
All of a sudden, and this may just be the way I'm seeing it now, but our option C, 173, is that correct?
The 173 is just the expansion. The grand total is 321.
It's just where you I see the 321 now. Okay.
Yeah, I had to move the screen up
Okay.
to be able to address the one time. So I
It
apologize for that.
It said approved, and I thought something had happened. Okay, now I'm okay.
All right. If there are no other questions, I'll just poll the board just to see the comments on this. So Matthew, your feeling on the one-time bonus as a separate line item to the commissioners?
I'll go along with it with hesitation.
Okay. Sarah?
I support it, and I'm glad we're asking with Chapel Hill.
Awesome. Brenda?
I support it enthusiastically.
Thank you. Tony?
Yes.
Awesome. Hillary?
Yeah, I support it.
Dr. H?
Yes.
Okay, and I am, of course, a yes. With that, can we get a motion to bring this forward?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. I would like to thank the board and all staff for helping us get to this point. It's such an important process that we do and ensuring all of the educational needs of our system. And I appreciate the time.
Hey, Will, can I make one comment?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
So now that we have worked through this today, I know that staff had talked about getting feedback through the PTAs about our budget. And I'm wondering if it would make sense to give a district email update about what we're doing and try to garner more feedback from families that way.
I think it's an excellent idea. And I think, we should send this out with the final so everybody can see it. And also, besides feedback, get support to the county commissioners as well for that discussion.
And maybe let them know when the hearings will be with the county commissioner so that people can, I guess it'll be virtual probably, but so that people know when to be listening, when the public comment is. I feel like an email with that information would be really helpful.
Absolutely. So I do know, okay, yeah, I just wanted to check something because I did get an email from the commissioners about it's about collaboration only. So we won't talk about that here. So I agree. Any other comments or questions or concerns with us sharing this with the community and getting feedback as well?
I think it's wonderful to get feedback from PTAs.
I don't think it should be the PTA. I think it should be a district email.
Everybody, we're gonna.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, sharing with the PTA is fine, but I just want everyone to get it. And I think the most sure way to do that is for it to come from central office.
Yeah, I would request that we do the email along with the Connect Ed because some people don't have the email and so they can hear and then call the number to request, hey, could you read it to me or, tell me more about it.
Sounds good.
All right. Any other comments before we move on? All right. So our next item is our COVID-19 state of emergency compensation.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Atherton. And again, it's great to see everyone tonight and hope everyone is staying well and remain safe and healthy. Before we begin our discussion about and provide an update on the COVID-19 4 priorities, which we've been focused on, I just want to take this opportunity. I'm sure you all are aware, but certainly want to welcome Mr. Matthew Hunt, the new principal of Orange High School. And so his first official day was last Monday. But we all know that Mr. Hunt hit the ground running from the moment he accepted the position. He was here, there, everywhere. You talk about jumping in, he did. So we are thrilled to have Mr. Hunt as part of the Orange County School team. So I just wanted to give a shout out to him. So with that said, as you know, as a district, we continue to grapple with this unprecedented time in our nation's history. The traditional school day, as we once knew it, has completely changed as the global health crisis continues to evolve. And so during this crisis, Orange County Schools has had a laser-like eagle eye focus on our 4 priorities. The first being safety, safety for our students, safety for our staff, families, and community. We've also had a laser-like focus on food, that is a basic need. It is certainly a basic need that our schools have provide to our students every day, and we did not want this crisis to be any different. And so a lot of work has gone into food, especially again for our food insecure students and families. We've also had a laser-like focus on learning. Recently received some guidance from the state and launched a remote learning website. And so you'll hear more about that. But we are focused on continued learning through practice and review of previously taught content, as well as opportunities to extend and expand and enrich students' learning. So students should continue to learn through these opportunities that we are providing. Also, the 4th and final focus that we've had is around wholeness and wellness, ensuring that our staff and our students and families are whole. For staff, that means able to sustain themselves. And so some of our staff have been working alternative assignments, and now we have a new opportunity that we will talk about tonight, but also with regards to meeting our families and students' social and staff social emotional needs. And so those have been the 4 priorities that are driving the work during this COVID-19 period. So tonight, our staff are going to provide an overview of the work that we continue to do in these 4 areas since our last convening at the last board meeting. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Pitts, Interim Chief Operations Officer.
So hold on a second, Dr. Felder. I think you're on a different agenda item. This is the one for the emergency compensation, not the update on the COVID. I'm sorry to let.
Well, no.
You're just giving us a backdrop, and I was like, no.
No. I'm sorry. I'm ahead of myself.
It's okay.
You know what? It's out there. I don't have to repeat it. So we do this next item, and then we can go right to Sarah Pitts. Sarah's probably like, what on the world? But okay. So Rhonda's going to take it from here.
Absolutely. And thank you, Dr. Felder, because your comments are very relevant to the discussion. And I believe everyone has the documents that we had shared in the agenda abstract. So I will start with the first one. You know, as Dr. Felder said, we're in a different time right now. And we have some staff that are going well, every staff member is, but there are certain groups of staff that are requiring that they continue to report to work during this stay-at-home order for us to be able to continue to support our families and their students. And as a result of that, we would like to bring to you for consideration this evening an additional stipend that would be an additional compensation to those staff members that are required to report to their work facility during this governor's stay-at-home order. And our recommendation would be a $60 a day a stipend for anyone who works 1 to 4.5 hours, and then $120 a day stipend for anyone who works 4.5 to 8 hours. We also like to be good stewards of our taxpayer dollars and to try not to overburden the district. We recommend capping it at $500 a week, and that any staff that work every day and would be due compensation over the $500, that we would provide them comp time for those additional hours. Based upon what we have discussed as a team, we feel like that this would require 3 levels of approval, and that would be the supervisor, myself, and the superintendent, just to ensure that what we are asking staff to put themselves in harm's way, that this is truly a required duty. We all know that transitioning to teleworking is not an easy transition for individuals who may not be equipped or used to operating in that environment. So we want to make sure that we first and foremost keep safety a priority for all of our staff. The estimates that I used to calculate this were based upon schools reopening on May the 15th. When I looked at the populations that this would entail and what I think it would entail for a half a day or full day and for how long, the anticipated total cost is roughly $205,500. Now look at our local budget. I can shift some funds in the local budget that have not been utilized for substitutes and conference and workshop attendance. However, it is not enough to cover the full anticipated amount. Therefore, I would request and recommend a $150,000 fund balance appropriation.
Rhonda?
Yes.
Go ahead, Matthew.
And we got the email today to where there was some fun, and or I read it today, let me rephrase it that way, where we're getting funds from the state and we're looking at how we can use those funds. Are there any possibility that those funds could help us on this?
Yes, sir, there are. I'm going to be making a recommendation with the second part of this presentation to utilize a portion of those funds to offset that cost. And yes, sir, those funds could assist. They have some limitations on them in regards to the staff that they could cover, but as far as the child nutrition staff, the bus drivers, and the maintenance staff, based upon everything I have seen to date, those funds that the state gave us could be utilized for that.
Is it enough to actually cover the $60 and $120 a day for the first one that we're talking about right now?
Yes, we received $296,000.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking that if we use those funds for this, would that protect our reserves and have those for enhancement for our starting school early? I'm trying to save money for starting school early.
And I appreciate that, and I appreciate your questions. I would just also toss out I was anticipating that those funds would have to probably be utilized to support some of the additional technology that we are needing to acquire to assist families at this time, because those costs, of course, are not in our budget. And I was anticipating trying to reserve a portion of that to offset those costs.
And that would be like our hotspots and the.
Yes, sir. So that would roughly, leave us a little 270 to 280,000 to be utilized to support technology, or if needed, it could also offset the previous recommendation for the additional daily stipend.
Okay.
We had a break in sound. I just wanted to make sure that everybody's back and can hear.
Yeah, all I heard was just the very end of this, Rhonda. I'm sorry.
I'm terribly sorry. I am more than happy to, should I just go through this entire piece of it again?
It would be helpful to me.
Okay, will do. So this stipend of $60 a month for the months of April and May is the intent is to offset cost of teleworking that staff are having to incur to support remote working. For example, many staff have limited data plans on their personal cell phones. Holding office hours and calling students may be burdening those plans for other personal use. Many staff do not have adequate broadband or similar internet access at their homes to support teleworking. So as a result, they're having to use their individual cell phones hotspots. We're having difficulty actually getting the hotspots and actually getting those. The demand is far outseeing whatever product we're able to acquire. So as a result, we recommend $60 a month for April and May to those staff members, which would be approximately 920 employees that could be eligible. That would again, cost $119,000. We would have to pay the FICA portion on this as it runs through our payroll. And so that total is $119,000. And this is the one I would recommend utilizing the state funds that we just received to support or fund.
And two quick questions, just in case I lose internet again. So would that fully exhaust the state funds?
No, sir. The 119 would not. If we just used this scenario, it would roughly leave 170 to 180,000.
Okay, so roughly 170,000 left that, based on what you understand right now, could be used to cover the bus driver hazard pay, bus driver.
Yes.
And okay. Second question, that when I read this initially, we're showing that we're going to be paying FICA on the second item for the teleworkers, but you didn't show any expenses for FICA on the first one that we're talking, bus drivers, child nutritionists, and custodians.
Thank you for pointing that out. I did calculate, it is part of the calculation. I did not note it on the presentation, so I apologize. So thank you for asking about that.
This is Jonathan. I was just wondering if we could do a roll check to just make sure that we have the board members able to hear. Dr. H, are you there? Can you hear?
What I just, Will, Todd, Jones, if you're listening, I had to go out and come back in, actually leave and come back in and rejoin. And if there's
I don't think Will is here.
I don't think
I'm sorry,
Will is there.
Matthew.
Oh, I may be the only one here. Oh, no,
This is Sarah, I'm here too.
We don't have
Tony, I'm here.
It looks like we have lost Mr. Atherton.
Yeah, I think because I sent him a text. I don't know if anybody knows the other board members' cell phones, if they'll just send them a text, just close out of it and rejoin. You have to rejoin to get back in.
Yeah, I can see Will's here now.
That is true.
Okay.
That is true. You have to leave and come back. Let's see.
Don't know how to hold my hand up, Will, but I did do that one.
So, Mr. Atherton, would it be beneficial? Did you hear any of my discussion regarding these two items?
I heard a wonderful explanation of the first item. And
Okay.
Dr. Felder and I have talked about the second. And I did have one question about the first item, just for clarity, is, although I know that the way it's stated is people that have to go on site, I believe that's going to work, that's not home. So for example, the bus drivers that are driving out to a location to distribute food, they would be eligible for that. That's correct?
That is correct.
Perfect. That's the only clarity I needed. I have no.
Yes, we're requiring, and I appreciate that clarifying question. We're requiring them to report to a work facility to carry out work duty. So they would start at a location, I guess, to pick up a school bus and then proceed from there to deliver the meals, et cetera.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
That's the question.
Go ahead.
Well, I have two questions. One, Ms. Stevens in the chat earlier had said she didn't have her sound back, so I was checking whether she had her sound back now. And the other one is, this goes through May 15th. If we're out longer, until the middle of June or something like that, do we have any thoughts about what we might do at that point?
My recommendation would be at that time, we should have a real good handle on any additional technology or other expenditures that we anticipate potentially incurring, and that Either it would require an additional fund balance appropriation or utilizing those state funds that have been allocated to us for COVID-19 response.
Okay, Rhonda, now
Yes,
we've
sir.
got board members back. Is there any financial reason that you would not use the state funds first before we use our fund balance?
No, sir.
So the,
Other
'cause
than
I-
to, no, it is not.
Okay, the reason I asked that, right now the state's giving those funds, and as long as my personal opinion is that fully exhaust the state funds and then go into our fund balance.
Okay, I appreciate that.
All right, I just want to quickly just confirm roll call with the board. So Brenda, you can hear us? Say yes? Okay, good. Sarah, I know you're good. Hillary? Okay, Dr. H? Okay. Tony McKnight, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Perfect. Okay. All right. With that, this is an action item. Are there any other questions or comments?
I did have one. I just wanted to make sure the Précis list April and May, and then but the conversation was around stopping it at May 15th. I just want to make sure that Rhonda, the motion you're requesting is that it would go to May 15th and then it would need to come back. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct, Jonathan, because all I know that we know for sure right now is May 15th.
Okay. And then the second thing, there was some conversation around the best way to fund this. Would it be okay as a part of the motion that the finance officer would determine the best way to fund this? With the understanding that fund balance is an option to do so, just so that there was some back and forth on that, and as opposed to board trying to finalize that, it would just be if the board approves this item through May 15th with the understanding that fund balance could be used as needed.
That's my preference. That's Matthew.
Okay.
It's all state funds first.
So just a clarifying question on the second one. $60 a month. And so even though sort of the period of time we're covering is just to May 15th, that's a monthly piece of compensation. So for the month of May, people would receive that 60.
That is correct. And that's just taken into account also, Ms. Smiley, from my lens, that they were operating for the portion of March.
That's right. Yeah.
In this environment. So I think I was kind of looking at it from the sense that if we did report back on May the 15th, then that monthly would offset the period in March.
That makes sense. Thank you.
So Rhonda, I had one question on the funds. So you have received the state funds or you have not?
We did. We received them on April the 1st. The state released them on April the 1st.
Perfect. All right. Anybody else have any questions or comments? If not, I just need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you all very much.
Clarifying question. We're not going to appropriate any fund balance at this point. We are going to utilize those state funds, and that we will revisit fund balance if needed at a later date.
Yes, but it should not slow down this money getting to them.
Exactly.
Okay, good. That's
understood. Understood.
Okay, perfect. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So our next agenda item, already prepped, is going to the COVID update. And Dr. Felder, who did you want to start with?
We're going to start with Mrs. Pitts. At the bits.
So good evening, everyone. At Orange County Schools, the safety of our staff and students still remains our top priority, especially during these times of COVID-19. 2 videos were provided to principals and members of the cabinet last week to share with their staff as additional PD, including COVID-19, what you need to know, and preparing your household. These videos were intended to help educate staff and alleviate any anxiety which they may be experiencing both at work and at home. At work, social distancing, time is a barrier, donning of proper PPE, and hand washing still remain the most effective means to protect our staff members reporting to work. Staff have been instructed to practice proper preventive safety measures, including those recommended by the CDC and Health Department. Orange County Schools had previously identified essential staff who are required to keep critical infrastructure of the district running and allow those personnel to report to work if necessary. After strongly encouraging all essential personnel to work from home if possible, it was decided that all Orange County employees who can work from home would work from home due to COVID-19 concerns. Has shifted operations to allow for only mandatory staff to report to work to protect the health of staff members and to limit the potential spread of the virus. Mandatory staff include maintenance technicians, necessary work orders, construction projects, child nutrition staff to feed the students, transportation to transport the food, custodians to oversee cleaning and necessary operations within our building, and any necessary supervisors. All non-mandatory staff are to work from home. We understand that this is an unprecedented step, but these are unprecedented times. Maintenance, child nutrition, and custodial employees are also moving to compress schedules and/or split shifts to physically separate staff and prevent overlapping of staff members to ensure the workforce can proceed in the event of a potential exposure. These modified schedules are expected to take effect this week. With child nutrition and transportation, guidance was given to all these employees involved with food sites regarding best practices for operating safely. Gloves, hand sanitizer, and face masks have been provided to all staff members and made mandatory for those assisting with feeding sites. After the feeding site is completed, all buses are sanitized daily to ensure that they are clean. As you may have heard in the news, a few other school districts have had child nutrition workers who have tested positive for COVID-19. In order to assist with keeping our staff safe, sites have altered the manner in which they serve food. Those staff in sites which participate in the short drop-off sites will have the staff remain on the bus and serve the food from the rear door of the bus. This will allow staff members to remain safe and on the bus and encourage proper social distancing. For those sites which are hosted at buildings, a table will be utilized to be placed between the staff and the public to encourage good social distancing. We understand the importance of providing food to our students during this time of increased food insecurity, but we also want to make sure that proper steps are taken to ensure the safety of our staff and that these food sites remain operable. Are there any questions regarding operational changes or safety at this time?
Sarah?
Yes. Oh no, this Sarah. Thank you, Ms. Pitts.
Sorry, Sarah.
Thank you so much for addressing that issue of how we're keeping our staff safe and how we're protecting them. I have seen that some school districts, when a child nutrition worker does come down with COVID-19, that they've shut down operations entirely. And I'm wondering this seems like it's going to get so widespread. It seems like an inevitability to me that it would happen in any school district, no matter how safe we're all trying to be. What do you think we would do if that were to happen?
Right now, we're currently operating more sites with less staff members. So we can space out our staff just in case someone happens to test positive. Mm-hmm. We are also splitting essentially an A team and a B team. Mm-hmm. So we again have proper distancing where if something were to occur that members of one team could potentially be exposed. We have another set of staff members in reserve that would be able to come in and operate sites. I foresee that if this becomes a large, prolonged problem, we may have to solicit more assistance from the public.
Thank you.
Right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Ms. Betts.
Yep, if there are no additional questions for me, I am going to turn the mic over to Sharita Cobb, who is the Director of Student Support Services, to talk about our food sites and food distribution.
Good evening. So tonight, I just want to give you an update on the food distribution that has been taking place over the course of the last 3 weeks. We are very thankful to our community partners who have stepped in and supported us throughout this unprecedented time. Presently, through our breakfast and lunch meals provided to date, we have served 13,858 meals. As of April 6, 2020, that is today, we have collected $8,525 in monetary donations through the K-12 Payment Center. We are very excited and happy and thankful to our community for supporting our families who are in dire need at this time. Food will not be distributed on April 10th due to the religious holiday, but we will be providing double meals on April 9th so that families will know that they will pick up 2 meals on that day in order to provide for the next day. To date, in addition to the food that we have been serving, the breakfast and the lunch, to date, as a result of the K-12 payments and food donations from Weaver Street, Radius Restaurant, and our generous community members, we have been able to provide 400 additional food boxes to families who are food insecure to last throughout the weekend. And those boxes are in addition to what our social workers are providing weekly to the food insecure families from their individual schools. So we are very thankful for everyone's support in this effort. And we are also very thankful to our SROs for their continued support and volunteering to help package and then to deliver those food boxes. And in order to adhere to our social distancing requirements, right now we're not accepting any more actual volunteers, but we do welcome any donations that community members or individuals would like to give. Does anyone have any questions at this time?
Matthew, a couple of questions on your weekend distributions at the Eflin Community Center today. There was a very large crowd there. I know that we also have a stop for our breakfast and lunch drop-off at other locations like the Supper Club in Mebane. Did we have the weekend distributions at the other stops also?
So we have been doing, we send the extra boxes, we send those to those larger, we try to send something to every one of those locations. And so we send between 10 and 15, depending on how many boxes we are able to put together.
Right. The other one, and this is just stimulate thoughts, that this weekend, or because of the holiday, we're providing parents with two meals for pick up instead of one.
Yes, sir. Knowing
that it's expensive from a fuel transportation cost for parents to come out, have we, if this continues, have we thought about allowing parents to get 2 meals a day or 3 meals a day, which would reduce exposures and save parents cost?
We have not, but that is a great idea that we will take back and look at how we could make that work with our plan that we presently have.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions? Sarah?
I have a question on this one. I'm so thrilled to hear about how much food has been distributed. That's awesome. I hope people keep donating. I will keep encouraging people to donate. Something, I think maybe it was in the weekly update from the superintendent. It sounded like we're with the monetary donations, we're then using that money to purchase food in bulk, but maybe through like Sam's Club or Costco or something like that. And I'm curious whether we've explored like through like however child nutrition gets food, like are there even like bigger cost savings from that, or are the foods just distributed in like these like giant commercial cans, and that's just not the kind of food we would be able to distribute.
Right. So what I have found is just what you said, that the cans are coming in the larger commercial sizes, whereas at a Sam's Club and or Costco, we can purchase like a 12 or 24 pack of canned goods. And we're also receiving generous donations from Weaver Street, but they are also broken out in those smaller cans so that we can then break them out and be able to make actual food boxes for our families. But we have been looking into other options.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions from any board member? Ms. Cobb, I just wanted to first say thank you for all the hard work you've been doing on this. And I am so appreciative of Radius Pizza. They closed and they donated their food to us to give to our families. I think that is just wonderful that our businesses are helping out in that manner versus, throwing the food away. One comment is I was approached by a person from White Cross. Do we need any distributions southern in the White Cross region?
I apologize. I'm not familiar with where White Cross area is.
It's in our southernmost area that we serve kids. The White Cross Fire Department reached out to me and has offered their site as a food distribution site. If that works for us. If not, they just wanted to offer it.
Okay, so what we'll do is the child nutrition, the interim child nutrition director and we talk daily or weekly about different sites. So we will look into that and see what our numbers look like in that area and see if we can't add that to our distribution site. Keeping in mind that we still have our school social workers who are still providing those boxes to their food insecure families as well. So it may be that, the numbers may not be as great, but that the social workers are providing that support for that area, but we will check into it.
Okay, that's great. All right. Thank you.
And if there are no other questions, I will now turn it over to Dr. Chris Gammon, Mr. Jason Johnson, and Mr. Ryan Miller.
So before we transition to Dr. Gammon and Mr. Johnson and Mr. Miller, just wanted to go back to the suggestion about serving number of meals at once. And so from what I understand, and perhaps Sarah, you want to chime in on this, the state, that is DPI, has discouraged producing multiple meals in advance due to cold meals not having a long shelf or stable life. And so, and foods may get mushy after a few days in the fridge. And so it is something we can certainly look into, but just wanted to share that as well. Sarah, I didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to add.
Yeah, I would just follow up that it's the integrity of the food we're serving for the cold meals. A day or two is usually good, but when you push out multiple days, it just becomes a little not favorable and a little mushy to serve to children.
Thank you.
All right. So you turned it over to Dr. Gammon. Is he on? There he is. Yep.
Yeah, I'm on. I'm sorry. We were listening to Sarah and it cut out on our end.
Okay.
So, and thank you all so much for your time this evening. On March 13th, Governor Cooper closed schools in North Carolina to instruction. Since that time, the Orange County Schools staff has worked diligently to develop and implement a remote learning plan. On March 27th, NCDPI provided guidance to districts regarding remote learning, grading, as well as graduating the class of 2020. NCDPI identified at that time 5 critical factors for effective remote learning. Those 5 factors are as follows. Number 1, it is accessible by all students for which the learning is intended and is responsive to diverse learning groups. Number 2, it maintains consistent communication between instructional staff and students. Number 3, it addresses the curricular and instructional needs associated with appropriate standards. Number 4, it includes evidence of student learning. And number 5, it considers the whole child as well as the home learning environment. While Orange County Schools is providing remote learning opportunities for students, OCS currently does not meet all 5 of NCDPI's critical factors for remote learning criteria. Specifically, OCS does not meet criteria number 1, remote learning is accessible by all students for which the learning is intended and is responsive to diverse learning groups, because OCS does not provide devices for students in grades K through 2, approximately 1,600 students, and OCS doesn't ensure all students have access to Wi-Fi from home. Additionally, OCS doesn't meet criteria number 4, remote learning includes evidence of student learning, because OCS cannot adequately provide evidence of student mastery of content remotely. Not meeting criteria number 1 and number 4 has implications for OCS's grading options for grades K-11. To that end, OCS is in the process of creating a committee to develop a vision and a strategic plan for instructional technology. Per NCDPI's guidance provided on March 27th, all students will be provided meaningful feedback to promote student growth. Districts should focus on supporting student progress and communicating feedback to students and families rather than on assigning grades. Current research has confirmed what most teachers already knew. Providing students with meaningful feedback can greatly enhance their learning and achievement. Teachers should provide meaningful feedback to students on their submitted work as frequently as they receive it. Feedback can be provided in writing and or verbally. The OCS curriculum and instruction team is currently developing a required professional learning focused on effective feedback for teachers. The professional learning will be accessible to teachers through the Orange County Schools Canvas site, and teachers will be informed of the date when the professional learning is ready. Orange County Schools, as we noted at the last board meeting, has developed what we at that time called a distance learning team. We have since transformed that into the remote learning team to align with NCDPI's language. The remote learning team is composed of classroom teachers and support staff representing all schools, principals, and central office staff. OCS's remote learning team is developing remote learning opportunities for students. They are providing that through formats such as online material, print material, video conference, telephone conference, teacher office hours, and learning management systems such as Canvas. In addition, this week, OCS rolled out a new remote learning website that is equipped with choice boards for students pre-K to 8th grade, as well as a variety of supplemental and practice options for students in grades 9 through 12. We are going to take a look at that remote website in just a minute, but just a couple of more pieces around that. Our ESL, AIG, and EC staff were integral in creating the choice boards and support materials to ensure the learning opportunities tailored to the specific needs of these groups is addressed. Choice boards provide supplemental learning opportunities that allow students to practice and review skills and concepts that are taught previously, as well as to promote continued learning. Choice boards provide opportunities to extend and enrich learning as well. Where feasible, choice boards can introduce and allow students to preview concepts / content they have yet to learn about this semester, while still not providing core instruction. Students and families should not be limited to certain choices on the choice boards. Regardless of ability level, students and families choose the learning opportunities they think are best for them. Schools can also supplement the choice boards as they see fit, but they should not replace the district choice boards that have been created jointly by the remote learning team. So at this time, I do want to take just a couple of minutes to show you through or walk you through the remote learning site. Mr. Jones, I believe, is going to help with this, or I may be able to share it from my screen. Thank you, Mr. Jones. As you can see, this is the Orange County Schools remote learning website, and huge kudos to Josh Hunt as well as Ryan Miller and so many other folks who worked diligently on a pretty quick timeline to get this built and off the ground. We really wanted this to be a one-stop shop for our families. So as you can see, the top, there's a paragraph there that's just giving a breakdown of information about the choice boards, as well as what the 9-12 students are being provided. On the left side, you notice there are remote learning choice boards and resources that are broken down in 2-week cycles. So the first cycle that we've rolled out is April 6th through the 17th. Teachers are currently at this time working on the next 2- and 4-week cycles after this, and they are currently creating those, and they will go up at the appropriate time. So Mr. Jones, if you will click on the pre-K to 8th grade choice board link, it will go into a Google Doc. It is in English as well as in Spanish. It provides those tiles there, pre-K all the way to 8th grade. So families can go in, they can click on a tile. So you can, Mr. Jones, if you'll just select a tile at random, you can go to 2nd or 3rd grade, is fine. So they'll click on a tile. When it opens, it may take them to a site. So this site is the website for a grade level. It has the ELA, math, and science choice boards. They would go in and click on the link for the choice board, and that link would show the choices for that first week cycle of April 6th through 9th, and then the second week cycle. And it gives specific directions in English as well as in Spanish for what students can do. So, Mr. Jones, if you want to click just on one of those, and then we'll continue on the ELA choice board, that's fine. So if you'll click there. As that comes up, it gives them explicit direction on reading for 30 minutes each day with different options, whether it's a book, it's online, it's a magazine, but then it gives them choices of activities that they can do around that using that acronym of READ. You can definitely look through that. And please note that we also have packaged hard copies of all of this information at the Welcome Center. Those are going to be going to all of the food distribution locations, as well as a few schools that are on that list tomorrow morning, because April 7th is the first date that folks can come to pick those up. We also have created a spreadsheet so that when parents call our helpline or our hotline and request a packet or paper copy, we're able to track that via that phone call. And we are also able to track that via emails if they come to teachers or principals, so that we can get those packaged and out to people as they request them if they're not able to go and pick them up at the sites that we've predetermined. Mr. Jones, if you'll go back out of that, the next just couple of things, just so we can be brief, you will notice that below the 2 choice board activities, below the pre-K to 8th and the 9th through 12th, there's a link to healthful living. So if you'll go back one more, Mr. Jones, to that far left tab, there's a link for healthful living education activities. This was compiled by our physical education teachers that give students a ton of different physical activities that they can do. We've also noted there where CTE and arts information can be found, as well as other elective teachers that are working on their processes at this time as well. and how those can be accessed by families. The central column there where it notes helpful resources, again, I'm not going to go through all of those, but again, it's a one-stop shop. So whether it is social emotional learning, general guidelines for student engagement around remote learning, how families can obtain printed materials, any tech support they need, any food resources, it's all there in the middle. And then on the far right, those are the latest updates. So as those Connect Ed messages come out from Dr. Felder and others, they are just in real time captured there so that families can kind of see what's going on in that lane as well. So again, this is our new remote learning site. It will continue to be updated and expanded as we see fit, and as the need arises moving forward. Does anyone have any questions at this time?
Will, I do.
Go ahead, Matthew.
Dr. Gammon.
Yes, sir.
What kind of follow-up are the teachers going to do to see if their students are participating?
So that's a great question. So students that have access digitally, especially through Canvas as a learning management system or any other forum, it could be through email, teachers are going to be able to easily check on them weekly, and especially when they have those office hours assigned, it's an expectation that they are checking in that form or that forum with students. Students who have received packets, inside of the packet, the front cover letter is in English and in Spanish, and it gives explicit directions about the materials in the packet, as well as ways that the packet can be returned. Some of those ways are utilizing a cell phone to capture pictures of the material that's been completed and then emailing that to the teacher. Some ways can be that the child just holds on to that. The teacher is notified when they make via phone call that we have completed the packet, and then it gets turned into the teacher at a later date should we return to school. But they also can talk through it over the phone with the teacher, because the expectation is that we are making phone calls to students that may not have internet service. So those are just a few ways. I mean, there are a multitude of ways that we can potentially do that.
Yeah, and those are potential. How many phone calls are we going to be making for the students who either have packets or who haven't received packets, or who might have digital access, electronic access, but they haven't signed in? Are we reaching out to students who aren't at least showing that they're trying?
Yes, sir. The expectation is that we are, and I think that now that we have this off the ground, we are communicating with principals again tomorrow in one of our weekly sessions with them to pass or push out information that will go directly to their teachers about checking in. And I think a part of that process, to help answer your question, if we are going to hold an expectation that we are providing students feedback, and we're going to provide professional development around that as kind of a standard, we have to do that in any way, shape, or form that we can. And so one part of providing feedback requires actual contact and communication. You can't provide feedback if you're not doing that. So I think that those things are going to kind of go hand in glove together, where we are not only reaching out to kids, but we're doing so in a very productive manner.
Yeah. And I, as one board member, seeing how we're able to track how many meals that we're providing, I think it's also important as we go to the e-learning that we get routine updates on our status of our e-learning. The other one is just for a thought, so that the paper packets that are provided, one way to get those back is when parents pick up food, they drop off their packets.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Think about.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That's it.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Before the question, I cannot believe how much you all have put together so far. It is really incredible how everybody has pivoted on every front. So kudos. I love having students in the district. I love the consistency of knowing that for whatever grade, whatever school, you can go to this website, and that choice board concept is similar. There's something easy. So I'm not planning on totally different spheres for the different kids of how they'll spend their day. So thank you for that. And thank you. I saw also in one of the notices that some of those hard copy materials you're making available at some really creative places like Food Lion and Walmart and Hillsborough Pharmacy. And I just, kudos. I think all of that is excellent, excellent, excellent. I have a couple of questions. One is, I saw an article about Los Angeles Unified Public Schools and like a shocking number of students there that they have not had any contact with since schools closed, which made me wonder, to Mr. Roberts' point, like how many of our students is that true for? How are we tracking? How many students we've had real two-way actual human to human conversation with, or over email, like between a student and a teacher, as opposed to sort of push out communication. Like how many kids are we not in contact with? And how are we tracking that? And then my other question is, are we planning any differentiated support depending on needs? So I see the differentiation for exceptional children and a lot of differentiation. I mean, students who were previously receiving like tiered interventions and things like that. Like how are we, knowing that some of our kids have greater needs, how are we planning on addressing that here?
So a couple of pieces to that as far as the tiered support. One of the pieces that I did note was that it's imperative that the EC, the ESL, the AIG teachers across the district, as well as our facilitators at the central office level, they're an integral part of developing the choice boards. And we actually had a virtual hangout today to reiterate that point again as we're going through the next cycle, that it's not enough to say they're reviewing a choice board that has been made. They need to be a part of the actual planning session. And so I think one of the really, when we start talking about silver linings or opportunities in a really tough situation, this has actually given us a really great opportunity to, for example, have teachers across middle schools that maybe have not previously communicated, actually planning together with those support staff on something that they can jointly create. So I think that's one way that we're able to do that. I do know that the communication piece, as you said, is so critical. I believe it would be, and I think Mr. Roberts mentioned it as well. I don't see any issue with us providing a status update at the next board meeting, because I think that would give us some time through this first 2-week cycle with the choice boards to be able to really emphasize to teachers the feedback piece and to check on kids, like you said, in a two-way fashion. And then from a spreadsheet standpoint, just to track that so that we can actually have some hard data for you. So that's a couple of responses. But again, anything that you're seeing as well as those articles arise or things that can be sent our way, we're definitely open to any feedback we can get.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Well, one other comment.
Go ahead.
Dr. Gammon, this is kind of falling into what Sarah was hitting on, that we specifically targeted 3 groups, AIG, EC, and English learners. We also don't have to, we can't forget the other students either. That when we give the update, we have 40% of our students who aren't performing the way they should be. And we need to make sure that we are contacting those students. Some of the students we're not going to be able to because they may not even have phones that we can reach them. But on the updates, I think it's important that we hear each group that hasn't been succeeding, our contacts with those groups.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Well, that's all I got.
Okay. So any other questions from anybody? So Dr. Gammon, on the statistic update, I just wanted to make sure that we include, how many people have internet access, how many people don't have internet access, however you want to do it, negative, positive, and how many people don't have computer access. because I think that will help us understand the magnitude of this delta that's, we're going to have in learning, and, try to figure out innovative ways to address it. So I think if, however you're thinking, if you could include that, because I think that's a big data point that we haven't quantified before, and I think it will help us understand it if we can get that.
Yeah, I agree. And also to your point, and to make note of this, for our high school kids, for example, because the majority of them at all three schools do have access digitally, we did have those administrative teams and teachers actually send us like hard numbers of kids that don't have access. We've packaged their paper copies with the intention of actually mailing them directly to those kids, because the amount of kids, it's a manageable way to get that out in a quick fashion. And then others, as Dr. Felder's communication that went out this weekend also stated that if folks needed to have it mailed, they could call the help center, and that would be an option if they couldn't make it to those food site locations as an option for us to get it out to them. But I do agree, having that captured on a spreadsheet is extremely important for us to be able to track.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Gammon.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Dr. Felder. Do we have any more updates, Dr. Felder? Yes. Oh, Mr. Johnson.
Good evening. Now I'm going to discuss with you about grades as well as our senior class. Guidance from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction issued on March 27th. Grades kindergarten through 11th will adhere to the following for student grades. Since Orange County Schools doesn't meet North Carolina DPI's 5 critical factors for remote learning, grades will not be administered. Students' grades up to March 13th will not be negatively impacted. In lieu of grades, students and families will receive meaningful feedback on remote learning assignments to promote student growth that are submitted before schools reopen. Schools reopen after May 15th. Orange County Schools will put a plan in place for students to demonstrate mastery in order to improve the grades they earned as of March 13th. Per the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, in the event North Carolina Public Schools do not reopen for face-to-face learning after May 15th, additional statewide guidance for final grading to ensure equitable treatment for all students will be provided by the State Board of Education. I'm going to stop there and just answer, are there any questions around grading?
Not look like any questions so far.
Okay. So in terms of our seniors, the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction and Orange County Schools have made the graduation of the class of 2020 a top priority. If a student has an F as of March 13th for graduation requirements, we will provide remote learning opportunities for the student to improve to a passing grade. Students will receive a pass, and it will be coded in PowerSchool as PC19, which stands for Passing COVID-19. Or they will receive a withdrawal, and it will be coded in PowerSchool as WC19, which stands for Withdrawal COVID-19. The passing or withdrawal is based on the learning as of March 13th for spring courses. Remote learning for graduating seniors will be prioritized to focus on meeting graduation requirements with a particular emphasis on students who are not meeting expectations as of March 13th. Last week, the high school counselors, high school principals, and CNI met virtually to discuss the guidance from North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. The discussion topics were identifying seniors that are in jeopardy of not graduating, and the process and procedures that will be used to ensure that all seniors have a fair opportunity to graduate. Our seniors will hear from their counselors and other school staff about their graduation status no later than April 21st, 2020. With that said, many of our seniors will begin to hear from their counselors as early as next week. Are there any questions around our class of 2020?
I do. And Will, we're getting close to where we may need to extend.
Yeah, I would recommend that somebody pass a motion to extend 5 or 10 minutes.
Motion to extend 10 minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, meeting extended till 10:10.
Okay. Jason, on
Yes,
our
sir.
seniors at risk, I think it's important that we know before April 21st how many seniors are at risk. Maybe we already know that. And I know that you said you were going to go out next week and identify those seniors, but we need that ASAP. And then what is, and I know we have the remote learning identified for them, and that's identified as a state priority. To specifically say, hey, this is how we're reaching student 1, student 2, and student 3. And I know it's not going to be in that detail, but we've got to identify them in that detail so that we can give them an opportunity to succeed and graduate. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Yes, sir, Mr. Roberts. And when we met with the counselors last week, I was not surprised to know that the counselors already knew who were in trouble. We're giving ourselves a little cushion to get letters out to all the students, but all of this week, they're going to be running grading reports, so they will know who's actually failing classes this third quarter as of May 13th.
Yes, sir.
I mean, March 13th, I'm sorry.
I understand.
All right. Sarah?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. Excellent.
Thanks. I did. It was the number. It was how many kids is it? But we're not answering that right now.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right.
At this time, Ryan Miller will join us, our instructional technology coordinator, and discuss student surveys.
Good evening, folks. Give an update from the phone survey that was sent out Friday, the 27th. The questions that were asked for all students were, what will be the method for your child to obtain future learning materials? Does your child have access to the internet for learning on a regular basis? We added one additional question for pre-K through second grade, and it was, does your pre-K second grade child have access to a device for learning, such as an iPad, Chromebook, tablet, or computer, other than a cell phone? The survey participation rate was 25%, or 1,797 responses. We sent the survey to 7,217 homes. We did not send it to Hillsborough Elementary because they had already completed a survey. So this number does not include Hillsborough. The survey results. What will be the best method for your child to obtain future learning materials? 51% said they wanted to receive it printed and provided by Orange County Schools, and they would be willing to pick it up at a remote location. Does your child have access to the internet for learning on a regular basis? 93% said that they had internet access for student learning. We added the one additional question for pre-K. Does your child have a device for pre-K through second grade? We had a 77% said that they did have access to a device for student learning on a regular basis. Any questions?
Right on your first one on the paper copies, what was the percentage that asked for that?
It was 31% requested printed hard copies.
Okay. Thank you.
My question is, it seems like this is not, the intent of this was not like person by person survey and like get this information, but broader trends? Or was the hope to get an answer for every child in the district? And if this isn't the method, like how do we think we're gonna get that answer? Full disclosure, I accidentally didn't answer the phone when this phone survey came because it came through as the district at like the same time the school's normal Friday message comes, and I knew I always get the email. So my apologies. I'm one of the 75% who didn't answer the survey.
Yes, ma'am. Certainly our intent was to drive the numbers that we needed to print for this go round of the materials. Of course, after the first round, I think we'll have a better idea for the second round, but yes, that was one of our primary goals.
Thank you.
No further questions. I will turn it over to Mr. Todd Jones, Chief of Instruction, Chief of Technology.
Good evening. I know we're running late, so I will try to be as efficient as possible. Like all other aspects of Orange County schools, IT has had to undergo a rapid transformation in how we're providing services. We have set up a remote support operation. We've got a calling tree that's associated with a landline. We're also providing an email address that feeds directly into our help ticket system. And then some students and some staff are continuing to directly contact the support technicians that have historically served their school. And that's fine, whatever's easiest for getting in touch with us to resolve these issues. Many of, nearly all of which we can resolve over the phone. We've got some remote control capability as well. Among our challenges, of course, global networks are stressed. I think we've all experienced some slowdowns and some degradation in network performance just from this massive global shift toward teleworking and trying to do things remotely. Similarly, the global supply chains have been quite disrupted, both on the demand end with the demand for a bunch of technology to assist in teleworking and remote activities, as well as on the production side where many of the manufacturers in Asia were among the first hit by this virus. We're also working with operations and finance to look into the possibility of a courier service that we can use to address some of the hardware issues that we're seeing. And then we're scouring all of the resellers and retailers for equipment. We have 150 Chromebooks that are estimated to be delivered on April 30th. We ordered 50 more chargers that we got just last week. We're ordering 500 Verizon hotspots, which are estimated to arrive on April 22nd to be able to address a lot of these gaps in internet access. And then IT is working closely with CNI to develop a strategic plan for all instructional technologies, including kindergarten through 12th, both for short-term and long-term needs. So in a nutshell, that's what IT is doing to address all this. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board?
One question, with our K2 not having iPads, we doing paperwork for those. I'm not sure how we're going to address that need, knowing that we can't get electronics for those children.
So can maybe Dr. Gammon or Mr. Johnson take that question?
Whoever can answer it.
So I'm happy to jump in here. And so, Mr. Roberts, the families can access the choice boards electronically, and so that's one option. They also
Before we go on there, is there an automatic link when they try to access it through a non-Orange County school device that will easily connect?
I'm not sure about that. So, Mr.
That it needs to.
Have to.
I know myself included that if I have to install something, it's a challenge. So I'm hoping that we can make it easy for them to connect their own devices.
Well, I don't think they need any particular app to access. It's just going through the website. And so it's a web page through our website. Not sure if I'm answering your question. So
If that's the case, then that's wonderful.
okay. And then there are hard copies available. And again, we are certainly more than willing to mail copies upon request.
Okay.
So, Todd, I did have one question. I know that there was some discussion about a texting list server or some method for contacting some of our families that would prefer texting. Have we done any investigation on that to see what the county's using or what we could do to accommodate that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, so I know there was some discussions about texting and if we have investigated any texting list servers, so people could sign up and be in English, Spanish, whichever, and be able to say, we send out messages just like we do for, you know, our Ed phone or email blast that would go out this texting list server, similar to what the county did for emergency services. Have we?
Right. Well, we've got the Blackboard suite of products, which includes a texting service for notifying folks through text. I know that's been used heavily in the past, and I believe that capability is still there. I think that's what Mr. Miller was describing when they were doing the survey through voice and maybe through text as well.
Okay, Will,
this is Jonathan. You are going to need a little bit more time.
motion to extend 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so just for clarity, so this Blackboard service, somebody could, you know, when it's set up, could text 789 text to remote updates, and then they would be subscribed to it and we push updates to them. I just want to confirm if we're talking about the same thing.
I'm not sure if that's exactly how it works, but I know that we've got the ability to push out text messages to folks based on the numbers that they have listed in PowerSchool. So I know that's all there. I don't know that there's a subscription service.
Okay, because I do know that we do have a population that prefers text. And hopefully we can figure out some way to accommodate them and all the families that may only have phone texting. All right, I don't have any other questions. Any other board members questions about anything going on? All right, thank you, Todd.
Sure.
Good evening, this is Teresa. The last priority area that I'd like to provide an update on is regarding keeping students and staff whole. Human Resources Department provides support in several different areas, including new evaluation expectations. The Department of Public Instruction has notified all school districts in North Carolina of new guidance and expectations around continued implementation of the North Carolina Educator Evaluation process. These new guidelines have been shared with our principals and other evaluators. Evaluation due dates remain the same according to the Department of Public Instruction, and the Department of Instruction has acknowledged that the current evaluation process has not been vetted for online observations. Despite that fact, new templates have been made available to principals so that they can complete teacher evaluation processes for this year. Another area that the Human Resources has worked on to support our staff members are in regards to new leave options. During a virtual meeting with principals, assistant principals, and other supervisors, we shared new emergency leave options from the state and federal government with our supervisors. We sent a memo to all staff regarding the new leave options and how to access and request new state emergency leave. Since sharing the information with staff on Friday, HR processed over 150 requests for staff for information or how to access and the approval process for the new leave options. During our virtual meetings with principals, assistant principals, and leadership staff, we talked about the difference between mandatory and non-mandatory staff designations and how we could support the governor's requests to ensure that we were encouraging folks to shelter in place and to work remotely. During the North Carolina stay-at-home order, schools were reminded to be mindful about who is being allowed to continue to work on site, and even our custodians, to a certain degree, we've encouraged staggered and compressed schedules for our custodians to again ensure their safety as well. A number of support documents around the state emergency leave have been made available on our intranet site for employees. And lastly, we continue to support principals with regard to remote working questions and how to support staff with regards to any needs around remote working. In closing, staff have received information on how to access the Employee Assistance Program and other resources to address social emotional supports for our staff. And that's the end of the priority area about making staff whole.
Any questions from anybody? All right. That concludes our agenda unless there's additional comments or questions.
This is Felder. I just want to say thank you again to all of the staff, to our principals, our teachers. Everyone is working so hard to do what's right by our children. And so what you've heard tonight is just the tip of the iceberg of all of the work that has gone into getting us where we are so far. So I say thank you to them and thank you to the board for your continued support. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I move the adjournment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Stay.
I got some ties at home.
I'm trying to.